2016.
So we're all going to be out tomorrow voting, doing our things with 24 hours to go before all of us head to the voting stations once again for the local government elections. We thought we'd just take a look at the projected outcomes in the main metropole. Now, BrandsEye, for example, looks at how big events are covered by the media and discussed by social media users to predict likely outcomes. And I'm going to ask JP Kloppers to just give us an insight once again into how they do that and how accurate it actually is. JP, good morning.
Good morning.
So tell us a little more about BrandsEye again and how you actually use social media to predict what potentially can happen in something like a local government election.
Great. Yeah, we're a media analytics company, as you said, and for something like this, we focus mostly on the social media part, which is trying to pick up consumer sentiment. Our kind of mantra is how people feel today will impact what they do tomorrow, and that's obviously true of an election. It's true for brands as well, and whether they're going to switch from one brand to another. We try and measure that and get an indication on what's the future impact as to why consumers are either happy or unhappy. So we did that quite successfully with Brexit, and what I think is interesting there is that the UK population's probably far more closely represented in social media than South Africa. You know, in South Africa, we've still got a very large portion of the population not expressing an opinion on social media. And so the big question is, and I think what we're seeing in our numbers is it's representing an influential vote, i.e. which way the vote's going to move. You know, it's almost an accentuated outcome, if I can put it that way.
Okay, just give us some more in terms of what the projections on. We look at the main metropoles, for example. I mean, there's PE. You've got Cape Town. You've got Tshwane, for example. What's your details telling you?
So overall, we see the ANC sitting at 41.5%. Looking just at positive sentiments. If we look at unique advocates, so if somebody speaks 10 times, we count them once in these numbers. So ANC is sitting at 41.5% nationally, DA at 36%, and the EFF at 22% of the national vote. In the metropoles, there's no one metropole where the ANC is sitting over 50%. And I think that was kind of the headline insight which we got. In Joburg, they're sitting at 41%, in Tshwane at 35%, in PE at 45%, Cape Town at 15%. So really haven't managed to gain much momentum in Cape Town at all. If we look at the differentials, because that's really where the result, I think, is going to come out. In PE, there's only 4.5 points between the ANC and the DA. So I think the DA could well bring about an upset there. The DA isn't outrightly ahead in Nelson Mandela Bay. I think what we're seeing there is a shift. If we look at the race statistics, we've seen a shift in the black kind of sentiment in PE. And I think that's where the upset could possibly come from. So I think that's, at the moment, from social media, is the DA's best chance at winning. Tshwane, it's almost very evenly spread. We've got the ANC at 35, the DA at 28, and the EFF at 26. I think from these numbers, the likely outcome in Tshwane is a sort of a coalition scenario where no one wins an outright majority. It doesn't look like the ANC will, but it doesn't look like any of the others will either. So I think that might be the first case of seeing the DA and the EFF having to try and do something together. And then Joburg, the DA is still 11 points behind. On the social media statistics. I think the ANC's still got a fair chance from a social media perspective of staying in control in Johannesburg.
So this speaks, however, on behalf of a very specific demographic. We're not getting very rural here. We're not looking at, we're looking at people who are potentially upwardly mobile, people who have internet access, people who are on their phones, are on social media. So upper middle class.
I think it's middle and upper middle class, and it's an aspirational class. I think that's important. Because what you see in the rural areas, it's not just a void. You still have some conversation coming from those areas, and the big question mark is how influential are those people in their communities. And that's where we saw the same in the UK, where people said, well, in the outlying areas, we're not going to see much data, but we actually did. And we saw very good data. So I think what we need to look out for here, and what I'm particularly interested in, is to see in those kind of more unrepresented demographics on social media, is in the conversation that we could track, how influential was it in moving the silent majority or the undecided vote? You know, people who always voted ANC, but now are in the space where they could be swayed one way or another.
JP Kloppers, thank you very much for your time, CEO of BrandsEye. Professor